Hello and welcome to WheelHouse Art's Art by Volume, presented by The Wine Room by J Bell Wine Co., the 100 proof podcast that highlights the vibrant voices of Louisville's creative community. I'm your host, Robin Elise Gibson, aka RAG or RAG if you feel so inclined, and this series shines a spotlight on the diverse range of creatives and aficionados from our beautiful visual arts community. From emerging artists and seasoned curators to passionate collectors and innovative designers, each episode explores the unique journey, insights, and stories that define their craft. In today's episode, it was a joy to connect with special guest, Pulitzer Prize awarded photojournalist Jon Cherry. We talk about his work as both an artist and journalist, how he finds balance between the two, the role of community in his life, and the ways in which storytelling can shape perspective. Before we sat down together to enjoy this conversation, I had the opportunity to meet up with Jon in Jefferson Square Park, the site of the 2020 protests where citizens demanded justice for the lives of George Floyd and Louisville native Breonna Taylor. It also happens to be the origin site of his thriving career. This conversation comes at a pivotal time in history as we talk about life and its many twists and turns from the time of the pandemic till today. This and more on today's episode 3 of Art by Volume. Every conversation is paired with a thoughtfully curated drink from our sponsor and neighbor, The Wine Room by J Bell Wine Co., reflecting the artful vibe of the discussions. In this episode, my guest and I will be sipping the Wine Room's third pick of the season, a delectable red, the 2022 Grenache. The 2022 Grenache from Angelina Vineyard in the Rattlesnake Hills AVA is a vibrant expression of Washington fruit with old world charm. Sourced from the high elevation site, the wine benefits from long, warm days and cool evenings that preserve freshness while allowing the grapes to reach full ripeness. Crafted with whole cluster fermentation, it carries both depth and lift, showcasing the varietal's natural elegance. On the nose, the wine opens with an inviting bouquet of ripe raspberry and Bing cherry, accented by warm baking spices and a subtle note of crushed cement dust that hints at its mineral backbone. The palate mirrors the aromatics with juicy red fruit at the core, framed by supple tannins and a silky texture. The whole cluster influence adds a touch of savory complexity, balancing the wine's ripe, generous fruit profile with a gentle earthiness and spice. Bright yet refined, this Grenache is versatile at the table. It pairs beautifully with soft cheeses, where its acidity cuts through the richness, and complements delicate seafood like whitefish and Dungeness crab, highlighting its finesse. Elegant and expressive, this wine captures both the generosity of the vintage and the distinct terroir of Rattlesnake Hills. ABV is more than just a podcast. It's a celebration of creativity, expression, and the art that connects us all. So, grab a glass and tune in as we turn up the volume on the conversations that matter in the art world. Okay, Jon Cherry.
Are we starting now?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome to Art by Volume. And here at WheelHouse Art.
Here we are.
Here we are.
That's great. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So just conversation. Absolutely.
I've done that before.
I try to. Sometimes I'm better at it than others, but we'll see what happens today. So how about we start talking a little bit about your art journey? Like, you know, how you got started. Do you have, I know you're a photographer. Do you have other artistic interests? So yeah.
Art journey is, I think it's broken up into two parts. There's the youth part of it, and then there's the, I guess, still youthful, more about where I am now over the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. So to start, when I was younger, elementary school age, I loved to draw. In fact, I used to have this racket where I memorized by tracing, and then eventually by memory, a picture of a tiger that I found in a magazine. And then I would draw one drawing of this tiger by memory and give it to my class, like a classmate, in exchange for something. So it was like a trade. So art for me, I think at the beginning was more of a means to an end.
Yeah.
You know, to get something out of it that was maybe monetary or material. And then when I was 14 or so, my dad and I went to a yard sale and found an old Shannon CM4, it's a 35 millimeter student film camera, mm-hmm. and a couple of lenses. And I didn't know this until we bought this camera, that my father was a photographer or whatever. He was younger as well, in his 20s. He just liked to mess around. And,
right.
And he was in the Air Force, and he traveled. He would take photos while he was traveling. And he was pretty good at it. He was good. He was a multi-talented person. And so he showed me how to use this 35 millimeter camera. And so I putzed around with it for a couple of years, mm-hmm. and then I found music as my main kind of outlet for arts. And so I played music for a really long time. I started out with guitar, acoustic guitar. My best friend at the time was taking lessons. We both started playing at the same time, and so he would take his weekly lesson, and then he would come back to me, and he would show me everything that he learned, and then we would play together. And then we played together for years and years and years into our early 20s. And by that time, we had become roommates when I was about 21 or so. And I switched over to 5-string bass. And I had some other instruments that I tried in between that time. I tried mandolin for a couple of years. Never really quite got used to it. Didn't play it in the way that I wanted to, so I kind of gave up on it. Then found the 4-string bass, really liked that, and it accompanied his music very well also. And then 5-string bass, because I started listening to a band called Primus. Okay. And really liked the idea of having the 5-string bass as like the lead instrument in a band. And so we played kind of that style for a while. And then I got really, I think, disillusioned or disenchanted with playing music altogether. Mm-hmm. I think I was playing with a lot of people that they were friends through music, but not really much other connection. And so whenever we didn't have music, we just kind of sat around and tried to figure each other out. It didn't really work. So I stopped playing music, and for a long time, I just worked. Pretty much all throughout my 20s, I worked at UPS from the time I was 18 until I was 30. I worked in bars and restaurants and did all kinds of odd jobs and built things for extra money. And then whenever I turned 30, or right before I turned 30, I decided that I needed to change. So I left UPS, I left the bar job, and started a manager position at a well-known public market here in Louisville. And that was at the beginning of 2020. And then 3 months into that, I lost my job because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I spent the next couple of months being unemployed for the first time, and really had defined myself by my work ethic, mm-hmm. and just by working. Mm-hmm. Probably avoided a lot of different things that I needed to by just being kind of like a workhorse. Mm-hmm. And so I spent the next couple of months reflecting and spending a lot of time with my dogs, and was at the same time trying to heal my upset state that I think really reflected the state of the world at the time. And then whenever the protests, the George Floyd protests came to Louisville, which was 3 days after they had started in Minneapolis, I still had, this will to photograph. So that's kind of like the long story to get to where it started for me, like my professional artist career started.
Natalie O Design is a full-service studio that offers a highly developed suite of expertise and services specializing in residential remodels, new construction, and commercial projects. They approach each project holistically and with keen attention to artful details. Their team will be beside you from start to finish, from selecting your build team to choosing tailor-made finishing touches. At Natalie O Design, they lead with craft and innovation. For 2 decades, their team has pushed boundaries and norms within commercial, hospitality, and residential interior projects, challenging conventions with their embrace of adaptive reuse and in-house designed furniture, lighting, art, textiles, and tile. They think globally, with references informed by international travel, food culture, and art, while acting locally with headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky. They are a proud megaphone for local and regional creative talent, makers and artists with whom they collaborate to create spaces that are notable for their eclecticism, warmth, and soul. Allow them to bring your vision to light.
So part 2 of that is in 2019, I bought a camera because I wanted to get back into photographing. Not for any particular reason other than I just wanted to make money doing something creative. I was asked to be a model on a shoot for a product. And while I was sitting around on the set and I was looking at all the cameras and the lights and all that stuff, I thought, wow, I could probably do this. This looks really neat. And I used to do this vaguely, 15 years ago. So I went out and bought a stolen camera, and I knew it was stolen, but it wasn't officially listed on Craigslist as stolen, right? Interestingly enough, though, that camera I think took a long journey to get to me, because whenever I took the SD card out and put it on my computer, there were a bunch of photographs of a basic training graduation from South Korean Army on it.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So really, I just put myself through the University of YouTube to figure out how to use this camera and how to tone the photos. And the bar that I was working at agreed to let me photograph their drinks and their guest space for like $300 a month just to get me my start. And then whenever the pandemic hit, so skip forward a little bit, the pandemic hits, I don't have a job. Yeah. These protests come to town. That first night of the protests, my best friend comes to my door at 11 o'clock at night while I'm getting ready for bed and says, hey, I heard 7 people got shot downtown during this protest. We should go check it out. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm not doing anything else. Yeah, let's go see this with our own eyes. Let's go, we've been watching on the news the past few days. We had also been pretty upset by the things that we had seen in the news previously. Back in January is whenever Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. Yeah. Then hearing word in March that a woman named Breonna Taylor had been killed by the police, and the whole thing sounded kind of odd, and it just kind of stunk. And then we saw how quickly that got buried at the time. Yeah. And then watched over and over and over again George Floyd being murdered in that terrible video. Yeah. So we were pretty pissed off. We were going out as like 2 pissed off, curious people. And so it was his idea, actually, for me to bring that camera. He was like, why don't you go in and grab your camera and we'll go and do this. So I remember he took video on his phone, and I went around and photographed and took some really, really dark, underexposed photos. Honestly, I was never really familiar with that part of downtown. So we parked in a parking garage and went up to the top and looked down over the crowd of police that were all in a circle in the middle of 6th and Jefferson. underneath the clock tower at City Hall, and that was one of the first pictures that I took of the protests. Interestingly enough, later on, that photograph was published maybe 2 months later in Vanity Fair. And so I say that not to brag, but just to say that I didn't really know what was coming for me or what was ahead of me.
Right.
To me, being a photojournalist or being a photographer professionally was like being an astronaut. Whenever you're a kid, you want to do it, but you don't really know what the pathway is to that.
Yes.
So I didn't know anything about photography. I didn't know anything about the world of art. I didn't know anything about photojournalism or journalism at all. So it was all new for me, but I had this passion and I wanted to keep trying and keep practicing. And so I went out every single day. I think I took a couple of days off in those first couple of months, but it was essentially like 50 consecutive days of going out and photographing. And 4 days into that spree of photographing, I had been posting these photographs on my Instagram with like 270 followers or something like that. And someone from Time Magazine emailed me and said, "We are really interested in this particular photograph." And she sent me a screenshot from the Instagram post of the photograph. It said that we're doing a compilation of photographs from the George Floyd protests all around the country. We'd like to include this photo. We're going to license it for $650. If you agree, here's a contract. And obviously my brain exploded because someone from Time Magazine wanted me to publish in their publication, and I just never really thought something like that would be possible. So that was the start of it for me, and I eventually figured out that the protest work that I was doing was that it was really, not only was it really hard on me, but it was not necessarily a lasting story. And the protests were either going to break out into an all-out civil war, and this would just be my life from now on, or it was going to simmer down and I was going to have to find a different way of telling stories.
Right.
So I remember the dates very well because they mean a lot to me. August 11th of 2020, someone from Getty Images reached out to offer me an assignment. And that was my first assignment for Getty. And I tried really hard on this very static assignment. Essentially, on Breonna Taylor's birthday, Oprah bought 26 billboards around Louisville to represent Breonna Taylor's 26 years of life. And Getty wanted me to go around town and take some pictures of a few of the billboards.
Right.
Well, fortunately, I knew the videographer who worked on the story for the Oprah show.
Right.
Going around Louisville, and he had a custom Google map of every single location. So I told them that, and then went around to not every single, I probably went to like 12, 13, 14 of these different locations, and I was taking all these different angles, and I was shooting on a tripod in the middle of the day using a 10-stop neutral density filter and just trying super, super hard. And I think that they saw that I tried really hard. And they also needed somebody in Louisville to do this work. We don't have the biggest freelance pool in Kentucky for photojournalists specifically. So that was the start of my relationship with Getty was in August. And I think the second pitch that I sent to them was, you might remember hearing about this group. They were really popular. I think they might have originated in Georgia. The NFAC, so All Black Militia. NFAC stands for Not Fucking Around Coalition. It was led by this DJ named Grandmaster Jay. And essentially, just to paint a picture in your head, is imagine 1,000 black men, mostly black men, some women, wearing all black, all carrying shotguns and AR-15 style rifles and AK-47 style rifles. And they would show up in 2020 to these various social justice sites to call attention. And a good friend of mine, interestingly enough, a white guy, had made friends with a couple of people who were locally with the NFAC. And whenever he got word that the NFAC was coming to town and having a large show of force on Derby Day in 2020, which was in September, not in May like it normally is because of the pandemic. He said, "Hey, I can get you in if you want to embed with the NFAC." And so I messaged the folks from Getty and said, hey, I have an opportunity in bed with the NFAC, which was not something that anybody had done, apparently. And so that next day, or maybe a couple of days later, I think is when it was, I ended up, that morning, there was a right-wing militia group, armed militia group, if you can imagine, vests, American flag hats, ARs, beards, all of those guys showed up in force at Jefferson Square Park, the protest zone.
Yes.
So I photographed that in the morning, and then in the evening, the NFAC had their big march at Churchill Downs, or near Churchill Downs.
Right.
So that was a really big day for me. One of my first exposures to right-wing militia groups, which drove this even bigger interest in, you could call them extremist groups, being able to see kind of both sides of it in the same day. And I think that was a really big basis for what I am interested in my career overall.
Right. Wow. So we talked a little bit about your involvement in the protests down in Jefferson Square Park.
Other guy.
And but I didn't know about the and what is it? NFAC?
NFAC, yeah.
Right. So I vaguely remember here, because I wasn't in Louisville in 2020. So I vaguely remember hearing about a group showing up around Derby. But I also had forgotten that they pushed Derby back. I was thinking that it was canceled for some reason. But after you brought that up, it's like, oh, yeah, I do remember a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a very subdued Derby. I think that it was... I don't remember the specifics, but I feel like the crowd was like maybe a fifth of the crowd, just because of the COVID mandates and social distancing and all of that. So they didn't want to have the normal, however many 100,000 people that are normally active on Derby Day.
Right.
And so they had and it was interesting because it was the same day, and there were two really big realizations that happened in that same day. Whenever his name was the Angry Viking. That was his online handle. That was the 3% right-wing militia leader that came to town on that morning. He was coming with all of these armed guys to confront protesters at Jefferson Square Park. And if the NAAC was there, then they were going to confront them as well.
Right.
And when they showed up in the park that morning, they realized that it was like a bunch of old ladies and kids in that particular day.
Right.
And so there was this realization that that a lot of people captured of the Angry Viking, realizing it was not as bad as a lot of the information channels that he saw actually reported.
Right.
And I think that there was this interpretation of what Louisville and other cities were like. Louisville was a pretty mild city overall as far as protest action, more violent action, riots, and things like that goes. I mean, we definitely had our moments, but the city wasn't burning. Really in the same way that a lot of right-wing press was reporting it, or just people on Facebook were talking about.
Right.
And then later on that evening, realizing how much security that the police put in play to separate the NFAC away from Churchill Downs and other protesters away from Churchill Downs. It was an interesting contrast, because there wasn't anyone there to protect Jefferson Square Park from the right-wing militia. Right. And then whenever the black, I guess you could say left-wing, I don't know. I don't know necessarily what everybody's leanings were in that group. You could assume that it was largely left-leaning group. When they showed up, it was almost like the Republican National Convention or the RNC, the DNC level of security to separate them from the horses and the people in attendance.
Also very interesting, just where the police station and everything is, and that there was nobody to meet them, whereas they all made their way to
Yeah.
Churchill down.
Yeah. Well, you protect what's important to you, right?
I mean, well.
Not to be, too critical of anybody throughout the course of this podcast, and, come as it's interesting because I always have, it's challenging speaking about a lot of these different topics because I am often wearing two hats, as a lot of journalists are.
Yeah.
The past few years, I've really been wearing the arts hat, working with a lot of arts nonprofits and with a lot of my own personal art has taken a new form and has I think gone outside of the bounds normally where photojournalism exists, and the ways in which I exhibit my work and the ways in which I talk about my work has changed drastically, but I'm also still a journalist.
Right.
So using my own language to share opinions about civil society or my judgments or to editorialize things, you've got to be really careful, especially right now.
Right. And I guess that kind of gets me into the question of, so how do you find yourself balancing these two worlds that you're in, right? Very much legitimately in both of these things. So what is your art practice like when you're in your art thinking space? How do you talk about your work and see your work and go about doing your work, and as opposed to when you're in your journalist headspace? How do you kind of approach it at that point? Just kind of like the difference between the two.
Yeah, so I like that both offer a lot of different access points for conversation, different types of conversation. And you can touch a lot of different people with both in the field, whenever you're interacting with people. Oftentimes what I specialize in is breaking news photography, which can be all kinds of really terrible things. There's never breaking news about something great. It's always a natural disaster, mass shooting.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. That's a lot of it. So a lot of the folks that you're dealing with when you're dealing with breaking news are, if you're dealing with people who are affected by it directly, it might possibly be the worst day of their life, and depending on the situation, you might be the first person that they speak with or they interact with during that time. And so you have an opportunity to come into a situation and, exercise all means of being a good human and being a good human being first. And a byproduct of that is that maybe you'll get some good pictures too. Often thinking about where are these pictures going to go? What are they going to be used for? Whenever you're shooting for a wire service, you don't necessarily have the agency to say that, okay, this photograph that I took for Getty is going to end up in a place with an outlet that I agree with. And you just kind of have to live with that. But I really believe that if you come into it clean, if you come into it with with a pure mentality, that the photos can speak for themselves in certain ways. It's always really broken my heart whenever I've seen the opposite. But like I said, there's not much you can do with that.
Yeah.
And then as far as the arts go, you have a lot of opportunities to touch people as well. Obviously through exhibiting and interacting with museums and interacting with galleries and with collectors, and they see the work and they see the bylines and they see the CV and all of that. But being able to interact with people directly and give them just kind of the gifts of your presence and give them an exchange that might be a little bit different than the one that they're used to in dealing with artists. Because I'm not necessarily from this world, I don't have training or standards that I adhere to necessarily, and so I'm always kind of looking for something different. And I think that comes across as refreshing to some because maybe they've grown up or they've been accustomed to a certain way of operating within this world.
Right.
And I definitely respect that classical training that it takes, and I've learned a lot from the people that have helped me navigate this world, because it is definitely different than the real world, right? And what's happening out on that sidewalk right there.
Absolutely.
But I think even those lessons can apply to what you experience out on the street too. And And so I really do try to mix together both of those because in my attempts to remain objective as a final goal,
Yes.
it's not a perfect practice and it's not a guarantee,
Yeah.
but it is the thing to ascribe to, almost like a musician is very rarely going to play a song perfectly every single time. But they're going to try to do that.
Yes.
Right? And that's what it feels like. And that's what photojournalism requires of you. And a lot of different folks have things to say about that too, about the objective truth or just the truth. Post-documentary photographers will often discuss that. And it's a little bit too over my head at this point in my career, but I get it, and I try to apply what I've learned to both photojournalism and to the art side of it. I think the biggest thing for me on either one is thinking about what is going to happen with these photos, and having a constant kind of narrative or through line that I experience in life, my emotional state throughout these different portions of our news cycle is what informs like which photos am I going to compile together from all of these different events and all these different happenings, and how can we exhibit these, or what can this photo be used for? Can this photo that I took in June of 2020, can it be muralized in some way, because this is a time that is it still is, but was very important to me.
Right.
The BLM protests in 2020 were they represented the start of a career and a new life for me, and kind of the shedding of an old life. It represented a lot of community gathering. It also was a compilation of a lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of the folks that I got to know during that time, and I see their lives now.
Yeah.
Through connections in social media or just like in person, and people put a lot of eggs in one basket during that time. And I don't know if they were necessarily. I don't think they got what they wanted out of it. And so whenever I exhibit that work as a part of another piece, it's like a way to honor that time and keep it alive in some way. There's also a historical implication oftentimes that comes with the work that we do in photojournalism and in art. Some of these photos that we take are going to end up in history books.
Yeah.
They end up in news articles that will live forever.
Yeah.
They're, when I talk about coming into it clean, I want that mentality to exist within the photographs for as long as they are shown online or in physical media or what have you. And I hope that's what stands the test of time. I felt not necessarily discouraged, but I've felt a little bit, I'm trying to think of the word. Maybe I'll use discouraged as a place marker for now, but I look at a lot of the work that I have done in the BLM protests, with January 6th, with COVID, and I see the current state of history about those different events, and the current state of history, at least the current mainstream narrative about those, is different than how I remember and what I photographed.
Yeah.
And so I take a little bit of issue with that. And I used to have this kind of, not to beat myself up, but naive perspective that like, oh, these photos are going to change something.
Yeah.
Like they're going to sway policy, or it's going to create a humanizing view, or the classic give a voice to the voiceless, or something like that. And that's just not always the case. But I am encouraged by the fact that maybe some of the effects of these photographs won't be seen until after I'm gone.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what it's about. Is not necessarily like having the end goal of like these photographs are going to change something, but maybe somebody later on down the line will see them and they'll feel something. And they'll feel how it was for me whenever I was there. And,
right.
Yeah.
Because you're definitely a part of a movement, right? And I don't know what it's like for you when you study history and you see the photographs that were taken from protests from, our parents' generation and before, and what sort of mindset that puts you in. But especially seeing things like that now, understanding a certain headspace that they were in then, and thinking about that in terms of what's going on today, personally gives me encouragement, because it was a time of turmoil. It was a time of fear, but you also had people who were telling their truth. And so often we're either encouraged to be silent or we're silenced. And so still having these photos, still having the stories that are told from this perspective in a way that was very sincere comes off as sincere. And so while it may be colored something that we may not like now, when there's a certain amount of removal, when there's a certain amount of care, I think, when people are actually looking at these with eyes that are a little, maybe not fresher, but different, I think your hope will definitely have some, I think you'll get what you hope for.
I hope so. I've noticed that for a lot of photojournalists and art photographers, that it is oftentimes a very tumultuous existence. And I didn't understand that my first couple of years getting into it, because I was like, oh wow, this is great.
It's
I'm
new,
getting to
right?
travel around, and
Yeah.
it's new. Yeah, it's new, and I can't believe people pay me to take pictures, and I still have. I mean, every day I wake up like that. Anytime I have an assignment, or I'm working on a story, or just going out and taking photos, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I get to do this for a living.
Right.
Like, this is my full-time job, and I don't have a boss, and I get to work for all these cool organizations, and I get to meet all these really awesome photographers and get to see their work and be inspired by them. It's a really rare and privileged position to be in, and I'm always very grateful for that. And I think a lot of the, I think within that too, there's also an industrial complex that is attached, news
Absolutely.
media, as well as the art world as well. That sometimes that part of it gets me down.
Yes.
But limiting the noise within those and coming back to that kind of clean place,
Yes.
helps me continue to photograph in my own way. Now that I'm established in the industry and can not necessarily pick and choose the stories that I want to do, but I have a little bit more agency with that. I think that certain outlets trust me a little bit more than they used to, for sure. That's a pretty sweet spot to be in, to put it plainly. And I feel like I can take more risks with how I photograph.
Yes.
I remember early on getting advice from photographers when I was first starting. And I mean, every single thing that I had heard from another photographer, I really took to heart.
Yes.
And then later on, I met someone who mentored me for a couple of months, who said that feedback is like a gift that you don't have to open. And so I started to become a little bit more discerning about finding my own voice within this industry, because there are so many different ways to photograph something. There's so many different ways to approach people.
Yes.
And to approach a situation or approach another person like you've seen someone else approach them is only really leading you to copying what you see other people do.
Yes.
Which is a great way to start, but that's not necessarily going to be the most genuine, like I said, clean version of the work that you can produce on your own. And I think that over the past maybe year or so has been I think it's been not necessarily a weak point. I think it's been it's been a weak point for me. I felt a little bit more socially awkward the past year or so.
Than you did starting?
Yeah, way more than I did start. I was so overconfident whenever I first started. I thought I could do no wrong, and I couldn't take a bad picture.
Gotcha.
And I was just kind of like the boss hog, and got published in Time as my first time getting published.
Right.
I got this figured out.
Right.
And I have more questions than when I started now.
Honestly, it's probably a good space to be in, because I mean, you're fairly new at this, you know? You're growing in a practice of not just, you know, photojournalism, but your art practice. And they're like this, they're not the same, but they are. And then the way that they're growing together is very interesting. And then having to navigate both of those spheres. So in this sort of, you know, learning, this process, you're going to have the ebb and the flow of it, right? And so I think it's really cool and interesting to see how these worlds that are so different and yet so similar, and you actually finding that balance in between and then finding your own voice. Because I feel like it's not maybe easier as an artist, but there's a little bit less that we have to deal with as artists, that we don't really have to be objective, you know?
Yeah.
So, but as a journalist, actually dealing with, like, I can deal with my truth, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, the rest of the world is going to see it in that way. But you telling different stories this is that story, right? And so you kind of have to be a little, you know, separated from it. So it's more like a lens, whereas in your art practice, that's like you know?
But how separated can you actually be?
I mean, you can't.
From photojournalism. And this is something that I think about often.
Somewhat separated?
You have to be somewhat separated, but there's also a closeness that is, I think is required to make, to really tell not just what happened, but also how something felt.
Right.
And I think that is always I think that's where the objectivity conversation becomes really flimsy.
Yes.
Because if you are going to talk about how something felt, you have to feel it.
Yes.
And you can insert your feelings into the photographs purposefully, or you can be extremely present with it and allow other people's emotions, or allow the landscape's emotions, or allow the building's emotions to come through you and be more of a conduit for it. But that is, I think that is the part of the practice that I am more obsessed with.
I think that is why I find the line that you're striding so interesting, because it is very much an artistic and a very human way of dealing with the world, which is important. You're talking about human experience, even natural experience, how that's affecting the people who live in these spaces. So while, yes, you do have to have that objectivity, how is it that you have to connect, right? And the way to connect is through emotion. And so growing all of that and becoming more confident in all of that, it's just the more that you do it is just what's happening. It's like you kind of got not thrown into it, but you're like swimming in like the deep end.
Definitely thrown into it. It's so interesting. In the entire time that I worked at UPS, I worked at UPS for 13 years, and I thought that was going to be the thing that I did for the rest of my life. And I thought that was going to be a job that had a lot of upward mobility, and I was going to learn a bunch of stuff, and I did. But I learned eventually that it was a kind of a dead-end job, or at least the way that I did it was not necessarily in line with the objectives of the company at large.
Right.
And there wasn't really space for me higher up than what I was. And so I just kind of suffered in that for a long time and didn't do much about it and needed a way out. And that, I think, was my entire work ethic up to that time, up to whenever I left UPS. Even whenever I started in that next job that I eventually got laid off at, nobody was going to do the work that I needed to enter into the world that I'm in now for me.
Right.
But it was done for me. I lost that job, and I was met with a choice of either figure something out, which I didn't know what that was going to be, because to be honest with you, I was so burned out whenever the pandemic hit that I would have been fine with never working a day in my life.
I mean, you were working for a long time.
When I was working crazy hours. When I was at the public market, I was working 100 hours a week. I didn't take a single day off for those 3 months that I was there, 3.5 months that I was there. and I had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, and I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was obsessed with making it work. And then whenever that was taken away from me, I recognized that there were all these other parts of my personality and just who I am that had atrophied from being so sedentary. And so then I was suddenly confronted with those.
Yeah.
And so whenever I started into photojournalism, or just started photographing the protests, and I started getting a lot of notoriety from my community, from people in Louisville, I was, people were really moved by these photographs. And I knew to a certain extent that I could not let that be the reward for what I was doing. And that the kind of external validation that I received from taking photos that connected with people was not going to be enough to sustain me, that I needed to find my own inner power, or inner light, or whatever you want to call it, to sustain me. And I think that I tried to squeeze that kind of fulfillment out of all the other work that I did by pleasing my bosses, by working harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
I used to always do this thing, every job that I've ever had, I would make sure that I worked harder than everybody else, longer than everybody else, earlier, later, the whole thing, and did it perfectly without making any mistakes, so that in the event that one day I wanted to just chill and have like a lazy day working, that I could, and someone said something about it, and this is all hypothetical, right? Like on the day that I decide
just
that I want to call in, or the day that I decide that I just want to be kind of lazy on the job, that if somebody said something to me, that I could pull out this laundry list of all of these accomplishments that I had, and all this recognition that I had. So I had to kind of drop that, and lose that part of my personality, or dissolve it at least, because I recognize that as one of the parts of me that that was like it's like the difference between like Twinkies and pasta, right? Like one of them is going to sustain you with a bunch of sugar and carbs and stuff that you can like process really quickly, but it's not actually sustainable. Right. While the other one, which is a little bit harder to
break down,
consume, it's a little bit harder to make, is going to be the one that truly sustains you, but it doesn't look as fancy, or it doesn't look as appetizing. It doesn't, to a 10-year-old. So that was the way that I had to ground myself during that time, that first part of my career, because I was getting a lot of attention from people. I was getting a lot of likes on the social media, and I was, people were, when I was first starting, were sharing my work and talking about how proud of me they were, and how amazing it was that there was someone from Louisville who was working at a national scale and international scale, and I just had to push that off to the side and be gracious for the attention, but not let it. I couldn't consume it. Right. So it's the other things that I consumed had to be the connections with people. It had to be the quiet moments with myself. Like getting to know myself better through this work. Learning was a really big part of it. Just one of the greatest things about this job is that you just get to meet incredible people from all over, and you get to go to places, and even if you studied up on it, you really get to show up and just be dumb and not know anything, ask a bunch of questions, and it helps people be seen too. Like, it's very rare in life that someone ever has a nice digital camera shoved in their face and then has like a portrait made of them, or doing and natural disasters are really hard, but they're also really rewarding in a not in a kind of twisted sense, because it's such a raw experience for everyone that's involved, and you get to hear people's stories about like what a person meant to them, truly what a place really meant to them, and then hopefully the other end of that, the end product of that, is that the history of this place, this snapshot in time when you were there, is preserved. And then on the news side of it, the less ethereal side, is that people will see those photos and say, I need to go and help. Let's go grab our boat and ride down the river and look for survivors, or let's go grab a trailer and bring a bunch of supplies and clothes and things like that down,
Right.
or let's help clean up debris.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the consensus between me and all my very close colleagues, is that nothing else feels as instrumental as a photojournalist as covering natural disasters or the aftermath of those, because it's, you know, the way that our society works right now. A mass shooting, I think, is like one of the biggest tragedies that can ever unfold on people, because nothing changes afterward other than the fact that people are gone and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And everyone, you know, certain media outlets will say that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And people are crisis actors, and these people's pain doesn't mean anything. And
Yeah.
the photos get used for a week, and then everybody kind of moves on, except
Yeah.
for the people that were left back here.
Exactly.
So, and the same thing goes with natural disasters. Like, people don't come back, and people's lives are forever changed. But being able to sit with them and talk with them and just kind of be that person that sees them and hears them. You know, I carry a lot of those folks with me nonstop, and they inform how I photograph still.
Yeah. So that actually brings up a couple of things that I
Sure.
want to like touch on, but one of them is, it's kind of obvious as you're talking how much connection is important, not only to your work but to you. We've spoken before just a little bit about community and, you know, how you've been, you know, supported. But also, oh goodness, I lost the second point. I might have it written down.
It's all right. You can edit this part out.
I can, but will I? But yeah, go ahead and just talk to me a little bit about your community and, you know, just how you've been supported on your journey.
Yeah, so my community has been instrumental, I think, in getting me to the point that I am now. Definitely getting me through some really challenging points. When I was first entering this endeavor, I was, as I mentioned before, I lost my job. I fortunately cashed out my 401k from UPS, but I didn't receive that money until later on in the year, and I didn't get any unemployment. I was one of the many people who was waiting in the digital line at the unemployment office.
Me
You
too.
were too?
Never got it.
Never got it? Wow. I actually got a really great tip from a buddy in September of 2020 to call up my local, or to my district representative. And within a couple of weeks, it was solved. Just saying. But I think that people recognize that I was spending every little bit of energy that I had doing this. Mm-hmm. And so I had people that would leave groceries on my front porch. I had a friend who shared my Venmo or my Cash App or one of the money share accounts on the internet. And so I just started getting all these donations kind of out of nowhere. Just people really believing in my work and telling me whenever they saw me that they really love my photographs and to keep it up, and they know that it's hard or it looks hard. You know, even at the protests, I would have a lot of people who would come up to me and, you know, ask if, you know, hey, are you Jon Cherry?
Yeah.
Say, hey, yeah, that's me. And then, you know, give me a hug or give me a water bottle or something like that. You know, I had some PPE that was donated to me, and people helped me raise money for body armor and all of that kind of, you know, riot essential stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, later on, as time goes on, or as time went on, you know, I remember it was like late summer, early spring. It was early spring of 2021, after January 6th, after I had covered a lot of stuff related to COVID. I had a couple of friends that would tell me, one of them who has passed on, and she used to be the head of Louisville Metro Health and Wellness. She was the doctor there. Mm-hmm. And she, and this other friend, and several others would tell me, like, I think one day you're going to win a Pulitzer Prize. We just have a feeling like we're going to win a Pulitzer Prize. And that was that was cool. That was cool to hear from people, and I didn't quite know what to think about it. I was very, very humbled by the idea of something like that. And so whenever it did happen, unfortunately, the woman who I was decent friends with at Public Health and Wellness, her husband reached out to me after she passed away. She passed away very suddenly from a heart condition. And her husband reached out to me and told me that she used to always tell him in private that she really liked me and that she thought that the storytelling that I did about the city's efforts for vaccinations and for just the medical emergency response of people who were experiencing COVID, whether it's in COVID ICUs or Louisville Metro EMS who were going and picking people up from their homes. Did a lot of work related to that. And I guess it really had an impact on her. She saw something like this coming. So yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while. It makes me kind of emotional to think about, especially because like in his time of grief, like he reached out to me and told me that like within a couple of weeks of her passing away. And I wish that she had gotten to see that for herself or know that for herself that had happened. Because apparently she was speaking very highly of that. But yeah, no, it's oftentimes really traumatizing work. There's a term that we use in this industry or in many industries, but in this particular field, it's called moral injury. It's also known as soul loss, but moral injury, I think, sounds a little less severe. And you really need to be able to lean on your community and lean on your friends, lean on your partners, lean on family to be able to process these things. And sometimes even then there's a line, right? Like these are, you can inflict moral injury on others by unloading on them. So it's really been photojournalism and photographic arts community that I think has been good for industry specific woes. Yes. Right?
Yes. I don't know if I'm going to get back that second part of that question, but it
what was the first part again?
Just about the part? Yeah. But this particular, it does lead me somewhere else that I've been thinking about lately, just with what's been happening in the world. And I know personally, like the other day, I was feeling just some grief after seeing news about a young man who was found hanging from a tree. And so my artwork is something that I use to process my grief, whether it's personal or communal or whatever that is. And it came to my mind because you have to, as a photojournalist, come in contact with the things that can easily break a human, right? And you come in contact with broken humans. And how is it that you process that? Do you see yourself using your work to process it as well? I know you lean on your community quite heavily, but are there other practices that you do for yourself in order to kind of metabolize or process and maybe not let go, because sometimes it doesn't quite leave, but to have it in a place where it doesn't heavily affect you in a way that's negative?
Yeah, letting go is hard, but I think metabolizing is the goal, right? So there are different things that I do to try to metabolize these things. So they will always be incorporated within you, and they will inform how you carry on with your life. But some of them are a little bit heavier or harder to digest than others.
Right.
And one of the things that I really appreciate about this work is that it leads you down some very real roads towards very real things. I consume a lot of media. We all do. And it's nice whenever you find something that is real. You find a documentary that's about some people that feels raw. It feels like, it talks about the ruggedness of life almost like it's commonplace. There's not much tempering of words. There's not much shininess to it. It's just a good story about some real shit. And the work that I have been attracted to, I think, has been symptomatic of looking for realness within my own world and moving the facade, or at least seeing past the facade, which I think is why I like breaking news. It's why I like moving towards some more difficult topics within our society. Not only because I'm curious about them and I just like to be where things are happening. I'm a huge news junkie, but I would much rather be in the place rather than seeing it through the filter of someone else or seeing it through multiple abstractions. Right. And if I can be one of those lenses or be one of those layers of abstractions, that feels like it's a really privileged place to be. And I just want to see things for myself. Right. And I think that on the other side of that is that by seeing things for yourself, you also, through your closeness, take on some of the emotional weight of that. Mm-hmm. So I don't. It's a hard question to answer. Like, how do I process these things? I think I process them by continuing to do it. Gotcha. And remembering the things that I've learned in these different emotional states that I've been in, and what has worked for me, and toss out what hasn't worked for me, and continuing my work in that way.
This episode is sponsored by WheelHouse Art, a contemporary art gallery whose mission is to make more art more accessible to more people. Located in Louisville, Kentucky's historic Crescent Hill neighborhood, WheelHouse Art believes in the power of art to inspire, connect, and transform. Their exhibitions rotate every 6 weeks, showcasing incredible work by regional and national artists in a welcoming, approachable space that's free and open to the public. The Wine Room by J. Bell Wine Co. is proud to announce the opening of their newest tasting room in Louisville, Kentucky, a homecoming for their talented winemaker who was born and raised in this vibrant city. 6 years ago, she made the journey to Washington State to learn and craft wines for J. Bell, and now brings the heart of their winemaking philosophy back to her hometown. As a family-owned boutique winery, J. Bell is dedicated to small lot production and old world winemaking practices. Each bottle reflects their commitment to authenticity and craftsmanship, with a focus on single varietals and thoughtfully balanced blends. They embrace minimal intervention in the cellar, allowing their wines to speak for themselves. They use native yeast fermentations, and most of all, their wines are unfiltered and unfined, preserving their natural character and depth. This Louisville location not only celebrates their winemakers' roots, but also offers a new way to experience J. Bell's Washington-grown wines in an intimate, community-driven setting. Whether you're a seasoned wine lover or new to the world of handcrafted wines, you're invited to taste the story behind every glass, where tradition, place, and passion meet. Welcome to the Wine Room by J. Bell Wine Co., Louisville. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Indigo Mavens. The Indigo Mavens interior design studio is on Lexington Road, in the heart of St. Matthews. The Mavens bring a warm, client-centric approach to design, serving up joyful spaces that blend modern sensibilities while perfectly at home in the bluegrass. Their work is deeply personal, tailored to reflect not just how a space looks, but how it functions and feels. With a roster of talented local tradespeople, their client-centric approach turns every project into a collaborative experience focused on listening, guiding, and designing with intention. Whether you're taking on a full renovation or just refreshing your furnishings, Indigo Mavens can create a home that truly reflects you. Visit indigomavens.com or follow along on Instagram at Indigo Mavens. Indigo Mavens, creating beauty in the bluegrass every day.
And looking through photographs is also a very cathartic experience. Even if it's just photographs from that particular day. That's always, after a long day of shooting and going back through the photographs from the day, you kind of forgot that certain things happened. Like, oh, I forgot I met this guy at noon.
Right.
Oh, and then I drove here. You know, it's like a diary.
Yeah.
But you know, I like taking walks. I like walking my dogs and thinking. I like just sitting quietly in the house, just having a good think, sitting on the porch and having a good think. I think it's so much of a. I think all of my emotional processing comes from just like doing other things and thinking about whatever it is while I'm doing it.
Right.
With no particular outlet in that direction. And talking with friends, and you know, I've got a couple of good friends that that's almost our entire relationship is just processing the hardship of life together. Yeah. And politics and just every portion of civil society that we can think of. And which, I mean, really comes back to the community part of it. I have those people. I feel very fortunate to have those people that I know that I can call on a whim. One call, that's all, right? And we can have that conversation. Or, you know, we've got what we call pop-by privilege, which is where you don't have to call ahead, you don't have to text me, you just pop by my house.
Right.
You know, that's really important to have that. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah. No, I was just kind of processing that too, because I have certain friends too who, you know, we may not talk very often, but when we do, we usually really get into it.
Yeah.
And so it's like a cathartic experience, even though it can be very heavy, but it's also something that's needed because I can be in my mind about a thing.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Not everybody can handle realness for extended periods of time.
Right. And so to know that, well, I can see that how you have these, you know, pillars of support, not just in, you know, your community, but how you are conscious of it in yourself and making sure to set aside that time for yourself. I feel like so often, especially when things do get heavy, we tend to want to shut down and not process it. But doing so safely, or when you feel safe, whether it's people or just having those quiet moments for yourself with your dogs walking, I think that's just a good example of what processing can look like and be okay with that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. It's it's hard to not abuse things in exchange for having some solace away from the things that affect us.
Yeah.
I think. Whether that's tobacco, whether that's alcohol, whether that's weed or other things, or you know, just distractions.
Yeah.
You know, sitting with yourself and finding good ways to process these emotions and process these thoughts without letting the noise dominate your life.
Yeah.
Especially how our world is now, extremely, extremely challenging. But I find that when I'm in that psychology where I can concentrate more on the things that truly feed me, that the other things are much easier. It's almost like if you get on a health kick and you're eating really good for a couple of weeks, people around you start eating more, they see you eating well, and so they start eating well too.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get into this like flow together. And then, you know, maybe you have like one too many drinks, and then the next morning you have like a fatty breakfast, and then you're right back into it again. Right. And I feel that way about, I mean, that is just a part of a more central issue.
Yeah.
It comes from the same place.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've been trying to be more conscious of.
Right.
You know, I'm a big nicotine person. I love nicotine. I love the effects of nicotine. I love how focused it makes me. I love how it's kind of a small escape. I like how it's an excuse to get away. It's an excuse to get into stuff. It's a self-romantic feeling. But I have to be really conscious about those things, because I feel like if it's something that I'm abusing,
yes,
that it is a detriment to the other parts of me that I'm trying to solve or trying to heal or what have you.
Right. Even get to know again.
Yeah.
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 Okay. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
This is what I'm doing this evening, so.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's no problem. I mean, do you have more stuff? I mean, I'm great to talk. I've still got half a bottle of wine left.
We do. I meant to cheers before we started, but I completely
Oh, it's
forgot.
not too late. Here, I'll just pour myself a little bit more, and then we can have a little.
We will. Okay.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Viewers at home, cheers. Or wherever. Is this the sponsor of
This
today's
is
show?
our sponsor.
Well, you know what? I have to say, whenever I am trying to process my emotions after experiencing soul loss, I know I can always rely on J. Bell Wine Company,
Yes.
Yakima Valley. We're pretty sure that's Oregon. Maybe it's Washington.
Washington.
Washington?
Yes, I think.
In Washington.
J. Bell Wine Company, with the wine room right up here up the street, is our show sponsor. So absolutely. That I will not be editing out, just so you know. Yeah. Well, I think I do have what motivates you to keep going, but have you already kind of touched on that?
What motivates me to keep going is I don't know. I think about that all the time. Like, why do I keep doing this? Well, it's my job.
Yes.
I think that's a big part of it. I need to be able to buy dog food and pay my rent and pay for the other things that I like to do, you know? So that is part of it. And I wish that wasn't part of it, because it also is a factor in how we take photographs, is our career path. I just really like to be places. I feel like so much of this work is about getting there. 99% of the work that we do is about getting to the place that is important to us. And then the 1% is the photographing it. And I think that is really the opportunity to kind of show who you are and be who you are as a photographer. And I like that game. I love to communicate with people. I try to do all of my work on my own. I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager or anybody like that to do these things for me. You know, we had a bunch of prints processed here, 40 prints processed and framed, here.
Yes.
And came to pick them up with my best friend, and we were loading them up into the U-Haul to drive them down to Danville for this exhibition. And he said, you know, someday you'll be able to hire people to do this for you. And I said, I don't ever want that. I would much rather be able to come here, go to the print shop.
Yeah.
Call my print shop and talk to Tim over at Kinetic and send him a bunch of files and then ask him what he thinks about the files. Do you think these are going to turn out well? And then he sends me back revisions and tell him some things differently. And then I say, well, I don't know about this one, or, you know, it's very labor intensive.
Right.
And then going there and then picking them up and then coming here and then dropping them off and then coming back and checking in and calling people and checking in, seeing how things are going, and coming back and handling every single print.
Right.
And then taking them to the place and then interacting with the people in the place.
Right.
I don't want to be separated from that process at all. I don't know if that's just young me talking, has
got the
time
energy.
and the ability and the energy to do that, but I might as well while I am. I learned everything that I know from those kinds of interactions,
Yeah.
from those actions. So I think that, honestly, I feel like a little kid a lot of the time. How people talk about being old souls. I feel like a young soul. I feel like in the swirl of incarnation that this is like my first time on Earth, and there are just so many things that I'm so curious about, and in that curiosity, it's just the smallest things.
Right.
It's the absolute smallest things that I try to pay the most attention to. And so this work gives me an opportunity and gives me the levity to do that, to pay attention to the small things and have a lot of attention to detail, and exercise my brain in that way too. And it's really challenging. Like, it's not. I absolutely love my life, and I love the opportunities that this has afforded me. It is extremely challenging. Maintaining inspiration, not feeling downtrodden by the news cycle.
Right.
A lot of people would say that it's kind of a hellscape of a news cycle right now. And I totally agree. It's not looking good.
No.
But I couldn't think of another time that I would want to be alive and experience these things and be one of the people who can go and photograph them. And also be with the other people who can photograph them too, because I oftentimes feel like whenever I'm in a place, like, I am not the best. I don't know if I've ever been to a place that felt like I was the best photographer there. I don't know if that thought has even crossed my mind.
Right.
I want to continue to live to watch how this industry has, how it changes, how these different voices are being represented culturally, because the culture of photojournalism is changing. Cameras are more accessible to people.
Right.
There are more people that are like me that don't have any training in this, that are just able to enter the industry. Right. There are also people who maybe never generationally had access to go to journalism school, or go and get a fine arts degree or an arts degree of any sort, and come out and do this kind of work. Because at one point, this was a very restrictive thing, to be able to buy film and be able to develop your own film, and to be able to probably had to go to school to do that. There was a very small demographic that was allowed to or able to do that. And it's been really incredible to watch not just people in the United States, but people all over the world, and these different underrepresented voices be able to add to the health of storytelling as a concept,
right,
in a visual way, with still photographs specifically. And that is something, I don't have Instagram on my phone right now, but I'll hop on it on my laptop like twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, to answer DMs, or to just scroll on my computer for just a second. I like looking at pictures. And I'm always so blown away by the work that people are doing. And I don't know, if I wasn't doing this, if it would mean as much to me, because oftentimes the first time I'm asking, the thing I'm asking is not how did they take that photograph, but how did they get there? How did they end up in that position to be there? And what did that feel like? That I think is it's like kind of the insider perspective that I really appreciate about this. And there's just so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much that I don't know. There's so many different ways of being that I don't know about.
Yeah.
I could look back at this podcast in a couple of years and think, what was I talking about? I had no idea what I was doing then, And now what I'm doing is the thing. That's the thing. This is it, man. I'm keyed in. And then a couple of years after that, look back at that point 2 years ago and be like, I had no idea what was going on.
But that's life, that's ever changing, right?
Yeah.
Even as we were having our conversation in Jefferson Square Park, you were just talking about how the landscape had changed.
Yeah.
And just being in there physically had changed.
In this area right here, there used to be a giant oak tree, one of those ones that grows really low to the ground and the branches reach out.
Right.
But they chopped it down that fall of 2020, so that the cameras on top of the cameras and the cops that would hang out on top of the county attorney's office could see into the park.
Gotcha.
As it was blocking it away.
Wow.
So it's changed a lot. Changed an awful lot. it's really nice to see that it's got all these plants and stuff growing, because everyone would just trample all over all these the whole time.
Yeah.
So everything just beats the shit.
And the mindset has already shifted so much from 2020 to now. And yet there's certain things that, are the same, but things are just so different, just seeing them from different points of view and different time periods. And even what you were saying earlier about people who were experiencing that time, who thought it was going to be something different, and then now we're just in a completely different, like, sort of headspace. And it's kind of easy to see, but also, in what other ways have you seen change from that 2020 period, like even just like mentally for yourself, between that time and now?
Well, I think my ways of processing things are very different. And I also recognize that the moments themselves are complementary to the next. Like in the moment is complementary to the next one. And I don't know necessarily the context of the next moment.
Right.
So you can look back 5 years ago, and I do this all the time. You would never guess that a pandemic ever happened in this country until you go to a rural gas station and you see that they still have the plastic up in front of the counter, or the stickers that you put on the ground in a bodega,
6 feet.
the 6 feet thing, like stand here, you know. See, and those are all worn out and weathered, and nobody ever bothered to peel them up. You know, you'll see things like that, and those will be those kind of historic reminders. But the story is not over yet.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most important. I remember after, I was there on January 6th, photographed what I could see from there. And then I was there the night and the following nights that all of the J6ers that were at the jail were being pardoned and let go. And I have actually at my, just to plug this, I guess, the Norton Center for the Arts have an exhibition that's going to be up until next July, I believe. Okay. We have these photographs here, is that moment of Jacob Chansley being pardoned, and also moments from the riot at the Capitol. And that compression of time between, you look at either one, no matter what you think about it, be like, wow, these are two really interesting moments.
Right.
And I remember being there, 7 degrees outside in January of this year, 2025, photographing these guys, getting out of jail and celebrating, and, you know, holding their loved ones and hugging each other, and, you know, having all these people that didn't know them even, that were coming to meet them outside of the jail and tell them how much they loved them and how much they believed in them. It was so incredibly powerful. But, you know, 4 years before that, on January 6th of 2021, thinking like, oh, this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the fall of something. Yeah. Not knowing the beginning of it, knowing that the beginning of it, that there was going to be a riot and that people were likely going to be trying to break into the Capitol to stop the certification of the electorate. But them not doing that. Yeah. They broke in, of course, and the electorate count was stopped. Yeah. But it continued on later that evening. Yeah. But thinking like, oh, this is like kind of the fall of this society. And then 4 years later, seeing these guys all being pardoned, and thinking, wait, I just jumped back to this moment where I saw this, and now I see it continuing on in a different way. Right. And all the court cases and everything in between not really mattering. Right. So I think the same way about the 2020 protests, I see the same thing about COVID and how it seems to not be a part of our lives. We don't know if it's not going to continue to be a part of our lives. Right. We don't know if this is just on a pause, or just from our perspective that there isn't a continuation of this story in ways that we don't see. Right. So I think that's also a part of it, as I feel very invested in the story of our world. Yeah. That's what keeps me going. That makes sense. Want to see how things pan out. Yeah. And I'm not going to be here forever. And so I, during this time, have really committed myself to this lifestyle. Yeah. And that feels good to be committed in this way. I don't know if I've ever been more committed to something in my entire life. I mean, confidently, I would die for what I do. People die for what I do all the time. And I don't want to, but
Yeah.
if it comes down to it, this is, you know, I think what we do is really important, and I think it's imperative to creating a better understanding about the world that we exist in, and it's now I don't know if I would die for the art side. Let me correct myself there. The art and the gallery stuff, like that is all fine and dandy, and that's cool. That's fun. That feels almost like a side job in some ways.
Yeah.
The photojournalism part of it.
Yes.
That is extremely important to me.
Right.
I think it's really even if it's not photojournalism, even if it's just photographic storytelling.
Right.
If it's documentary photography,
Right.
or if it's just the creation of art, that is very clearly, I think, to me, what I've dedicated my life to.
Because I'm just like, the creation is the thing. Like, even on the art side of it, the creation is the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, being in a gallery, being shown, all of that's cool. Really, the point of it is so people are seeing and, you know, are in conversation with the work.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
It also, you know, not to denigrate the gallery side of things, from a storytelling aspect, you know, I have so much respect for the people that have let me into their lives. I often am thinking, like, anytime I ask somebody, like, hey, can I come inside for a moment and
Yeah.
talk to you and
Yeah.
maybe take a portrait of you?
Yeah.
And they say yes, blows my mind every single time. Because I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah.
If I was on the other side, or if I was grieving,
Yeah.
or if some terrible accident just happened,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say yes to me.
Yeah.
And so this part of it, the exhibiting part of it, the existing within the art world, I think is a great way to give the stories more legs. It's giving it another way to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that is the ends that means produces for me.
Yes.
I'm constantly looking for ways to extend the life of a story, to make these people's sacrifice matter more.
Right.
Not just for like a one quick hit. You open up your phone, you get a breaking news alert, you look at it, there's a couple photos, there's a couple of, you know, short bylines from some folks, and then it's on to the next thing, right? To be able to give something more life, to bring it into the third dimension, I think it's an honoring thing for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's part of the humanness, right?
Yeah.
So I do like to usually end my questions with, you know, what brings you joy? Like, yeah, what brings you joy? What, you know, when you're going through life, or what puts a smile on your face? What makes you feel like, this is good, you know?
Yeah. I find joy in a lot of things. I think everything's got like a little bit of joy hanging onto it by a thread. Sometimes that thread is harder to see for certain things. I had an exhibition about this actually a few years ago. It was called The Little Mercies, and it was about finding joy in bad things. But more literally, the things that I find the most joy in is I love nature, I love birds, I love being a human being and being able to have sight and to be able to see the world around me. I love small details. I love thinking about the passage of time. Whether it's by watching things that are old and imagining how they aged, whether it's looking at geological features and wondering what they look like a million years ago, or knowing that this thing over here used to be over there and it took a million years to get there. Something about that really gets to me. I like babies and young animals a lot. My girlfriend, my dogs, music, my friends, playing board games with my friends, riding my bike, keeping my space clean and tidy, keeping my yard clean and tidy. I mean, it's so many different things. My mother, oh man, my mom brings me a lot of joy. That's like she's probably one of the main ones. It's interesting. My mom told me maybe it was after the Pulitzers, actually. It was right after the Pulitzers were announced in May of it was May 5th, I think. May 9th, May 5th, something like that, of 2022. And my mom told me that the best thing that I ever did was not listen to her. Because she used to tell me before I went to the protest, almost every day, if I talked to her on the phone, which I normally did, I would call her or text her, probably call her before a protest, is she would tell me to not go. And I would never listen to her. And then she would just say, okay, we'll just be safe.
Yeah.
So that's, my mom brings me a lot of joy. We have a really special bond. Nice weather. Seeing stuff that I don't know anything about scares me also. I'm like a little kid. I was a really scared little kid, and there's still a lot of stuff that scares me. I love to travel, and I'm also like really terrified of traveling and going to places and looking dumb because I don't know everything about this town.
Right.
I don't know everything about this culture.
Right.
I've always been afraid of looking stupid because I am new to something. And so being able to challenge that and then going to a place and being stupid or just being, unaware and gaining that awareness, whether it's through the gentle correction of a local or of someone who knows the customs or figuring it out on my own, I always find that looking back at it, it's a very joyous thing for me.
Right.
The work that I do brings me a lot of joy as well. Love taking a nice picture. It's a rare thing. You take a lot of good pictures. It's easy to take good pictures, I think. I think one of the hardest things about photography is that it is so easy to take a good picture. I mean, if you have a nice camera and you kind of have a basic understanding of photography and some of the general rules, you can take some pretty good pictures of a sunset or of like a person, a portrait. But there are so many different options for you to actually take in order to make a picture that is yours, right? And that feels like you. People can look at it and they can say, without looking at whose name is on it, I think that this was so-and-so's picture. Right.
Are you saying that that's the hard part of it?
Okay,
because I was
that's the really hard part.
I was gonna say that doesn't sound easy at all.
No. That's the hardest part. It's like finding your particular. For me, so far, I don't know. This might be the hardest part for now. There might be some other hard parts that I don't even know about. But being able to have your own voice that you can speak within your photographs is really challenging. And I think that for me, within this whole image making. Very varied experience that I find myself, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. Do you listen to hip hop at all? Mm-hmm. Do you know how certain rappers really rely on punchlines?
Like, yeah.
Like every song is just a series of punchlines.
Yeah.
And I find myself doing that with photography too, where there are certain tricks that you can do that hit every time, but it's not necessarily your picture. It's not necessarily your voice. You can take a good example of that is a couple of weeks ago I was in Washington, D.C. photographing the federal intervention, federal surge of law enforcement and National Guard and all of that for the Associated Press. And I found it really challenging to take photos that felt like me because I was already kind of tired of the photos I was already seeing from DC before I even went. Right. Because it is person and a placemaker. Right. And DC has a lot of placemakers. You've got the Capitol, you've got the Washington Monument, you've got the Memorial, you've got all the memorials, you've got all this really famous infrastructure. Right. And so National Guard person silhouetted in front of the Capitol. National Guard person mid-step walking past the Washington Monument. Right. And just so many different iterations of those. Those are like punchlines. For me, that's my understanding of them, is they're like punchlines. Okay. It's like an age-old trick. Right. And I often think about the process of creating photos almost like a lyrical process or like a musical process. And if you are into metal at all, and there's like riff-based metal, which is like no solos, mostly, some solos maybe, but like it's just the same like 4-bar riff for a minute and then a different riff that goes in a different direction. It's not very varied. It just relies on sounds that are pleasing to you. And that's not necessarily the photographs that I want to make either.
Right.
But oftentimes that's what you got to do. You have to make punchlines out of stuff. And so with that knowledge that you can make an effective photograph, but that photograph is not going to necessarily be your voice.
Yes.
I find myself whenever I'm in the moment photographing, trying so hard to avoid making punchlines that I end up not being myself at the same time.
Right.
So that's the equilibrium that I'm always trying to balance is
Right.
like, when is it okay for in this verse to throw in a punchline within this edit? When is it okay to make the same photograph that everybody makes if they're in this situation?
Right.
Right. Or when is it a good time to like look around and say, oh, actually, wait a second. I don't want to be in tunnel vision right now. I don't want to go to where the obvious photograph is. And when I say like photography is really easy, I don't mean that it's actually easy. I think that whenever you are, whenever you know how to use your camera and you know how to make a picture,
You can easily make that picture.
yeah, you can easily make that picture.
Right.
So what are you going to do instead?
Right.
And oftentimes that comes with great risk because you can go and do this other thing and the photo sucks and you didn't do it right or you didn't do the thing that you wanted to do. And, I often say like photography is a lot like fishing. Have you ever been fishing before?
No, I haven't.
But you can imagine
I can't imagine.
that fishing is not always catching stuff.
No.
In fact, it's a lot of standing around.
That's what it seems like.
It's mostly that. But you have to like standing around in order to like fishing.
It seems like a quiet meditative practice.
Yeah, if you don't like standing around in nature or standing on a dock, if you don't like being on the water, if you don't like not doing shit for a while, then you're not going to like fishing. And I feel the same way about photography. Photography is a lot like fishing. You go to a spot, you hang out in that spot for a while, you wait around. If you don't like standing and waiting around, you're not going to have a good time being a photographer, I don't think. And sometimes that spot isn't what you want it to be. And so you move to another spot and the thing that you wanted to happen in that other spot happens. Sometimes you get lucky and you go to the other spot and your future predicting know-how somehow was right.
Right.
And there you are. Oh my God, you made the picture. It's incredible. And it's such a great feeling.
Right.
And you go back and look at it on your computer or, have your film developed and you're like, oh my God, this is great. This is such a good feeling. I love this photo. I can't wait to share it with my friends or, put it in this book or what have you. And then the next thing is, does it have longevity too for you, right? Can you look back at it? And I'm really fortunate that it's not always the quality of the photograph that I am super attached to. It's the memory that came with getting to that point where I could take that photograph. That is the thing that I feel attached to. Because I've taken a lot of bad photos over my career. Way, way, way more bad photos than even close to being good photos. But I respect the journey and I respect what it took to get there and the things that I learned and, even the bad stuff along the way. Like I remember being really, really sick and thinking like, wow, I can't believe I got up that day and did this thing, right? I had long COVID throughout the entirety of the year of 2021.
Wow.
And it was my busiest year of my entire career.
Wow.
And I don't really have many good memories about what happened unless I look back at those photographs. And then I see them and I'm like, holy cow, these suck. But I was so glad to be there to be able to do this and experience this. I can't believe how bad I felt. I can't believe how many times I had to go back to my car and lay down. Yeah. And then go back to it again. Or like, I can't believe I met this person during that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey fashion lovers, have you heard? One of Louisville's most beloved boutiques just made shopping smarter and easier. Margaret's Fine Consignments, a local favorite since 1991, has just launched their brand new website. Now you can browse their thoughtfully curated collection of pre-owned designer pieces From anthropology and free people to Lily Pulitzer and Lululemon, all from the comfort of your own home. Whether you're after timeless classics or trendy finds, the new online store makes it simple to shop by brand or size and support sustainable fashion while you do it. So why wait? Visit margaretsconsignment.com to shop smart, shop sustainably, and shop local. And if you're in town, stop by the store at 2700 Frankfurt Avenue, open 7 days a week. The Wine Room by J. Bell Wine Co. in Louisville is more than just a tasting destination. It's a full sensory experience. In addition to their curated wine tasting experiences and the by the glass or bottle service, they're excited to offer a thoughtfully crafted, small bites menu from their in-house chef. Designed to complement their old world style wine, the menu features locally sourced, seasonal ingredients that highlight flavors that enhance the nuances of each pour. Inside, guests can enjoy guided tasting experiences in a dedicated space where reservations are encouraged, though they gladly welcome walk-ins if space allows. For a more relaxed vibe, their expansive outdoor patio offers the perfect setting to sit and savor with friends while taking in the charm of Frankfurt Avenue. The patio is reserved for by the glass or bottle service, providing a laid-back atmosphere ideal for lingering over a favorite wine and a few delicious bites. Whether you're a seasoned wine enthusiast or just discovering J. Bell Wine Co., the Wine Room invites you to explore their wines, enjoy locally inspired fare, and connect with the heart of their winemaking story, all in a warm, welcoming Louisville setting.
Did that answer that last question?
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of rambled in that.
No,
last
I
think
mean,
the wine finally got to me.
it was about joy, what brings you joy. And I mean, you were describing your art practice,
Yes.
or practice really, and it brings you joy. And so understanding the ins and outs and the whys, that's part of the question. You know? So it wasn't
really
a
does.
ramble, and plus I was also learning because I try to photograph even just my own work, and I tell you, it is not easy. You're like, oh yeah, take you a picture. I'm like, okay, I'll take that from you, but
It's I have to that credit though. I mean, it is difficult to. It is easy to take a picture, but to get to the point where you can take a picture is a difficult journey, and it's a constant learning experience.
yeah,
And honestly, it is a really nerve-wracking thing at times because people perceive you. It turns out people perceive you all the time, whether you like it or not.
yeah,
And if you have a camera in your hand and you are photographing things, people are really perceiving you.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started photographing, even before I was doing it professionally, whatever that means, that was the biggest block for me. So I would put my camera up to my eye, and I would only imagine that the people around me looking at me and thinking, that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
That's why I hated drawing on the train. Hated it.
That's bold, though. It's bold.
Hated it. Which is why I didn't do it very often. Because it was just like, I had friends who would do it all the time. And then they would end up having like actually really good competitions, really good quick drawings of people. I was just like, you know what? Imagination drawing. Like, I don't want even the idea of somebody looking over to see me drawing somebody else on the train was too much for me.
Are you a very non-confrontational person? Yeah.
Yep.
To photograph someone or to draw them and then be aware of it is a confrontation of sorts. And confrontation as a word, I don't think has a negative connotation.
No, it's just
it's just a matter of confronting another person and being vulnerable to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, if it's one of those things where I come up to you and I say, hey, your hair looks great. Do you mind if I take a photograph of you in front of this building? Or if I'm working on a story specifically and we've been talking all day and I'm telling you kind of the plan, like, okay, well, I'm going to take a photograph of you at your house and maybe in your backyard.
Right.
That's a different thing than picking a camera up to someone who doesn't know you.
Yes.
And then at least the way that I photograph, a lot of people will just like pick a camera up, take a picture of someone, and that's it.
Right.
But I'll take my camera up and I'll leave it up and I'll keep it there. This one. And I'll leave it there and then I'll wait for them to look at me. And if I get this look that I recognize, that is like, fine, go ahead.
Yeah.
Then I'll take the picture. But if I don't, then I'll leave it up and continue the kind of confrontation, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's completely silent, hopefully. And continue with the camera, right? Like, leave it up here, and it feels hard, and it feels confrontational. It feels like maybe even offensive in a way. And then maybe you'll see them soften.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll see them harden up, or they'll turn their head or something like that. But there's like this kind of unspoken language that comes with that sometimes. And that's another one of the things that really brings me joy is whenever, my favorite thing as a documentary photographer is whenever people stop giving a shit that you exist. Whether it's through, I don't know the formula.
Right.
I have shown up to places where I thought that I was not going to be welcome at all. That people were going to come up and be like, what are you taking pictures for?
Yeah.
And then I have to figure out, how do I want to explain this?
Yeah.
If I'm here for myself, I'm just like, well, I just like to document moments in time, and I think I like to learn, and I like to approach things with an idiot's mind, and I got this book that you should read. Like, there's all these different routes of explaining that, or I'm working with the New York Times and I'm here to blah, blah, blah. There's that too. But it's nice when people just see you and they recognize, oh, this guy is a photographer.
Right.
And that's it. And so that comes at different points in time.
Right.
Sometimes it's just like a recognition of what you are. You show up, you're photographing, people almost treat you like you're a piece of furniture, and they just don't give a shit. And then there's other times where that comfort has to be established through relationship. Right. The majority of the time, I think that's really what it is. And oftentimes that's just a really honest conversation of, my name's John, I'm a photographer, I have come here because this really interests me, and I just want to photograph you guys doing your thing, whatever that is. If there's anything you don't want me to see, just let me know. And they get so used to you being there that they don't care. Right. And there's a level of trust. And that is the big part of coming back to the original. One of my original points was going into it clean. People can really, we are so sensitive. Human beings are so incredibly sensitive. And we can tell whenever you are a bozo. Yeah. And we can tell whenever you are out to just kind of make money. Yeah. We can tell whenever you're conflicted or if you're having a hard day. Yeah. And I try to come into it with that openness I am totally fine with showing people that I'm like nervous to do this. This is weird. This is weird for me until I start to get into the groove too. Yeah. Maybe we can get to the groove at the same time. Right. But another big thing too is, you never want to get into this work, at least for me, is like through subterfuge or dishonesty of any sort. Which is hard because people also look at photojournalists like we're authority figures, right? Depending on what type of person you're with, people from marginalized communities oftentimes will give you consent to photograph them because they, in my experience, perceive that you may have more power than they do. And I don't want to photograph people under those auspices. If people look at me like, he's from the New York Times, so I have to do what he says. Yes. And I have to give him access to my life in a way that I'm not comfortable with because he has an organization behind him. Right. Sometimes people treat you like you're a cop. And they treat you like you have power and authority. And they let you do things and photograph them doing things that they normally wouldn't, because they're trying to fit into that power structure, which is normally beneath you. And I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to photograph people. And I have photographed people before like that when I was first getting into this. And afterward, it felt really gross. And I didn't recognize that's what it was until later on.
Right.
I thought like, oh man, these people are just giving me everything. This is great.
Right.
Not realizing that like there was a slight air of fear behind it.
Right.
So I try to come into it actually from the opposite approach of, this is an incredible honor and privilege to be able to take a peek into your life or lives. And I am nobody. I'm just the guy with a camera, right? And if you tell me to leave, I'm out of here. But I think that we can have a really fun time.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to learning more about you. And so there's like this, I think whenever I was like, those first couple of years, I felt like I was like Big Rooster on the farm. I feel like it was easier for me to fall into that power dynamic without knowing it. And now looking back at it, I would much rather come into it with that humility of, thank you for letting me be your guest.
Right.
And that, I think, produces better pictures and a better overall experience for me and for the other folks, I hope. I work a lot with people who are experiencing homelessness. And oftentimes that power dynamic exists. And sometimes it comes down to this conversation of, I am not better than you. I have an expensive camera. I'm not better than you. This is not, you do not have to let me into your tent or into your camp because you think that I'm important.
Right.
I'm not important at all. Right. In fact, like we are, there's a larger conversation that comes with it, but I work a lot with people who are experiencing homelessness, people with substance use disorder, and they are often used to being the lowest in the caste within our society all the time, and used to people like trampling over them. And so a lot of the times folks will, especially, it's such a traumatic experience living on the streets. People will totally subjugate themselves to just being taken advantage of, just so that the pain is not as great as if they were to fight back.
Right.
And so that conversation in particular is extremely important in that scenario.
Right.
The more vulnerable someone is, I think the more you have to be upfront with them.
Right.
Media literacy is a big part of that as well. Not a lot of people understand what it means to be photographed in a way that, okay, this photo that I'm taking of you is going to end up around the world.
Right.
Right. It's going to end up in a national spotlight of some sort, or it's going to end up as a print in a museum exhibition.
Right.
For you and I, that's a really easy thing to understand, right? If you come from maybe an old world background, right? And I say old world with the utmost respect, that the way that we consume media is like alien concept, because it kind of is, right? For people who live like more in accordance with the land and live kind of a more indigenous lifestyle, the way that we interact with media and the news and everything else,
it is,
and art, and the art world is so, it's almost on a different planet.
Yeah. It's
so separated from the real thing that a lot of people are living.
Right.
And you have to be able to explain that to people, right? And explain to them that these are the implications of it. Even if nothing bad happens to you because of where these photos go,
right,
this is how you are going to be represented somewhere else. Or here's all the potential things and ways in which you could be represented somewhere else. So that's like, taking photographs is easy. All these other conversations are the real meat of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot goes into, even just seeing how, seeing your work, and you can tell in viewing your work, the humanity behind it, the care that you take, in the subject matter that you're photographing. So as you're talking, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know. So
Thank you. It's the highest compliment I think that I can get. So that really appreciates.
Well, I try to do nothing. If nothing else, I try to speak truth. So, yes. As we end it or wrap it up, I do want you to kind of just tell the people about your show that's up, and you know, how long is it going to be up and where?
Till July.
Okay.
So this is my opportunity to plug things.
Yes.
Okay.
Plug it.
I have an exhibition, solo exhibition that's up at the Norton Center for the Arts in Danville, Kentucky, which is on Center College's campus. That show was made possible by contributions from the America 250 KY National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet from the state of Kentucky. Thank you all to all of that, and to be able to make this whole thing possible. The show opened in August, I believe. Yeah, in early August, and will be up until next July of 2026. I think we'll have a reception in April. It's called Be the People, Portraits of Contemporary America. I also serve on the boards for some organizations that I would really like to shout out as well.
Please do.
So Kentucky Black Film Association, Black Filmmakers Association, as well as Louisville Visual Arts. And do I have anything else going on? I don't think so.
Okay.
That's great. I have some other big projects that I would love to talk about at another point. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Yeah, I haven't been to the show yet. I was hoping to go and actually like say, oh, this piece, blah, 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 and have a conversation. But that didn't happen.
You know, I could have just sent you files.
I didn't think to even ask.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about it. But
It's all right.
honestly, if you want to go ahead and do that, maybe you can have a little extra something side.
I still can. I can send you files from that show. And I originally wanted to have the opening in November, and they just messaged me at the beginning of this week saying that we were going to have the reception in April, spring sometime, which is a huge bummer because I wanted it to be before. The thing is that the exhibition is about America in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's set, and if it doesn't open for another 6 months, it's going to be dated.
Yeah.
The most recent things will now be dated.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to be a lot of things that happen between now and spring.
Oh, absolutely, because things are already happening.
Things have been happening. Things are always happening. Have you noticed that?
I mean, it's kind of crazy, right?
It is crazy.
Yeah, they don't just stop, right?
Just whenever you think things have stopped,
no,
they continue on.
They keep happening. Yeah.
It's kind of disturbing.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Sometimes I'll be like, can we just chill for a second?
No, we can't. Unfortunately, the wheel rolls on.
It does. It does.
And you just gotta be able to roll with it.
That's true. And we do, because we're still here.
We are still here for now.
Yes.
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 We are. Statement of facts.
Yes. if nothing else, I try to.
Yeah. It's, it just, I don't know if this is necessarily going to be something to end with, but it's a really challenging landscape for people globally.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we are missing out on a big part of our joy and kindness quotient. If I can let us off with anything, is that it is never too much labor. It's never too much time out of your day to bring your elderly neighbor's trash can back around from the road, back to their backyard for them, or to help somebody bring in their groceries whenever you see them, or to stop to let a pedestrian cross the road that probably shouldn't be crossing where they are, right? There are endless opportunities throughout your day to exercise the highest capabilities of your kindness. And I think that we are existing in a realm right now that is purposely trying to make you forget that you have that ability. And things are kind of hateful. The rancor is pretty established.
Yeah.
courteousness that are oftentimes just like a little bit extra. I mean, it's just a little bit extra something out of your day. Like hand make something for somebody. I mean, it's so simple and it's so easy if you can just quiet the noise for a moment in order to take that extra step. But I think that from each and every one of us is going to be the thing that helps us change the world around us in really monumental ways. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for this conversation. Taking the time out, and this whole process. It's been nice getting to know you.
Yeah, nice getting to know you as well.
Absolutely. Just growing our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just building soil.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, thank you for joining us here on WheelHouse Art's Art by Volume. You've been listening to WheelHouse Art's Art by Volume, presented by The Wine Room by J Bell Wine Co., and hosted by me, Robin Elise Gibson. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'd also like to give a special thanks to our sponsors and wonderful guests. If you'd like to share any of your comments, questions, or insights, send us an email to abv@wheelhouse.art. We'd love to hear from you. ABV is more than just a podcast. It's a celebration of creativity, expression, and the art that connects us all.